Dealing with loss is the conversation that we'll be having right here on Kickstarter this morning. When you lose a spouse, there are no rules about how you should feel. There isn't a right or a wrong way to mourn. Men and women alike arguably tend to share the same level of pain when a spouse dies.
However, their methods of dealing and coping with the same tends to vary, unfortunately. Society has dedicated that while it is okay for a woman to freely express her grief after losing a spouse, the man, on the other hand, is expected to lock his pain in silence, often leaving him unsure of how to speak or seek support, lest he is perceived to be very weak and vulnerable.
Now, Dr. John Bahana is one man who has managed to defy all odds. He lost his wife to cancer, and in his phase of grief, he found a purpose. A way not to only mourn the loss of his dear wife, but also to cherish her memory through extending a helping hand to cancer patients in the country.
Yes, so he's here to share his story with us. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
It's an honor to host you. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
Thank you very much.
Right, Rita.
Now, over to where we start, the very passing of your late wife. Yes.
It's of course a sad moment to reflect, but it was way back 2016, and I was already here. We lived in Zambia for about 17 years. And we were already preparing to come back into Uganda. So I came well in advance. She was still with the children, and as soon as the children had now matured into university, they had all moved to US. So she was also preparing to wind up. And then I was here in Kampala in my office. I got information. Somebody called and said, "Oh, you know, Sarah is very sick. You should organize to travel back to Zambia." But during the weekend, it was coming to a weekend, and it became very complicated to travel those days to Zambia. And so I told the person who called me, I said I was going to arrange to travel on Monday. This was on Thursday. Friday, I was attending a wedding of one of my niece's weddings, and I was called, "No, it's very urgent, you must travel." So I went to my office to clear my desk, and then they said, "We need permission for brain scan, brain operation." And I said, "What are you talking about?" "Yes, you must." You know, it wasn't those days. Those days were not days of WhatsApp and stuff like that, right. Technological advances. And so I said, "Fine, let me scan the authorization," which I did. And 5 o'clock, they called me and said, "Sorry, she has passed away." It was that fast.
It was so fast. It was almost sudden.
It was almost sudden, I must say. But before we left Zambia, she had been to see a doctor. You know, ladies are a little bit secretive, and I guess even men are secretive about our personal, very personal lives. And so she went to see a doctor, and the doctor said, "Yes, you've got cancerous cells, but you need not to worry. We'll keep monitoring you." And so she continued to undergo the monitoring, but it must have gotten worse after I had left Zambia, and I didn't know.
So we're talking of cancerous cells in the breast?
In the breast, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So when the diagnosis was made, did they point out what stage it was at?
No, it was still very early stage, and that's why the doctor said, "No, it's not cancerous yet, so we just need to be monitoring you." And that's all. So it may have been wrong diagnosis. I suspect it was, because if they had known how serious it was, then they should have put her under treatment immediately.
Right.
But she didn't undergo any treatment because they said it was not really highly cancerous. Yeah.
When they mentioned that she had to go through a brain surgery, is it that the cancer cells had migrated to the brain, or what was the cause for them?
The cancer cells migrated to the brain, if I can use that expression, in the last 1 week. That's why it was all of a sudden. So the migration was very, very sudden.
Wow. So you were not prepared. I don't think anyone can ever be prepared for death, even if someone has been ill. But being that it was sudden, everything in your world changed.
Everything changed. you've lived with a partner for the last 25 years plus. I had known her even before marriage. So everything changes, and how you cope with it is not anything you are going to pick an example from a book or from a neighbor or from anyone. It is that personal to be able to, to live for her, because I had to live for her. I knew that was what she expected us to do, to live for her and not to succumb to emotions and stresses.
Okay, so moving away from the emotions, the pain, and on to the purpose. How did that happen? Did you have a support group? Because, as we have said, for women, they grieve and they have people who come and are with them, but we know that men are supposed to be tough. You don't even mention that you're hurting. So what was your support group like at that point in time?
Interesting. I think I indulged in my work, just swam into my science work, and I didn't have any support group. I remember trying to find one in Kampala, and the first occasion that I went to, it was a dinner, fundraising dinner, and the person who stood there told us how, I can't remember his name unfortunately, but he stood there and told us how his first wife had succumbed to cancer, then he remarried, and she also had cancer. So as he was talking to us, the second wife was in hospital. So we've got these extremes that we rarely share. So I didn't have a support group. I wish I did, not necessarily that I really missed it, but I made sure that I got involved in my work and moved on.
When you talk of a support system, and you wish there was one that you would have been part of.
Absolutely.
What are your expectations from this support group?
Yeah, the support group that we are talking about lead to managing stress, managing your losses, because then you are able to exchange information, you are able to understand the experiences of others. And if I can make perhaps a jump, this is what we are now trying to do. I've recently established the Cancer Foundation in her names, and what we want to do is to just do that, get involved in counseling, get involved in information exchange, get involved in establishing sanctuaries. I'll talk about sanctuaries at a later stage during this conversation.
Right.
But it's very important, because cancer is becoming so intractable. It is becoming deeply entrenched in our society, and we must learn how to deal with it.
You've mentioned that for you, coping with grief meant swimming yourself into work in your science, research and stuff like that. What other thing enabled you to walk out of that? You walking out of grief to a point whereby you're strong enough, strong to stand for your family and wife, to even establish a foundation?
Yeah, a difficult one. You get moments where you actually miss the person. You get moments where you feel that person should have been there to help you handle a particular situation in a different way. But then the person is not there. I remember moments when our youngest daughter was graduating in the US, and I traveled there, and I didn't enjoy the graduation, because you can imagine why.
Yeah.
But other occasions, if you indulge yourself in work, you indulge yourself in social activities, then the memory helps to fade, and it helps you to heal.
How was it for you explaining or standing strong for your children, pretty much?
Fortunately, they were not here. They were in the US, so they managed to handle their own stresses differently. They would occasionally write and occasionally would talk on the phone, but the fact that we are not together, maybe, in fact, when you come to think about it, maybe it helped, because if I would be looking
seeing them around all the time, would have made it a little bit worse for you.
Right, yeah. So maybe in a way that may have helped. The absence may have helped.
Okay.
When you talk about people coming in for counselling, and what do you think as a parent, because you're going to have different levels of people, you'll have the children coming in, you'll have mothers, you'll have fathers. As a father and a husband, what kind of counseling would you get after such a loss that would bring you back to speed in your life? Do you need someone to talk to you
You need to share experiences, because each occasion, each happening has its own uniqueness, and this uniqueness has got to be shared, because maybe within that uniqueness there are areas that you find commonality, and that commonality may help you to overcome the stress, to overcome the loss, but also the realization that life is a journey, that we come on this earth and we got to transit, and you take that into reality and you recognize you are not alone, that there are other people who have had even worse, effects on their lives, and you've got to learn to live on.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
away from the pain, away from the experience of where you're now wondering what happens, where did the purpose come from to have the foundation, Sarah Bahana?
Thank you for that question. The memory keeps fading naturally, okay, because other things occupy your brain, and so her memory, the memory of her life in you keeps fading. For example, I remarried, so you are looking at these young ones of the second marriage, and it helps you to heal. And then you've got to think of, what can I pass on to others? What is it that I should do in order to remember her? And am I going to just keep in the shadows, or do I recognize that there are other people with the similar situations that I need to help? And every day you get information in the newspapers, you are invited or you are called to funeral services, and in the speeches they are telling you so and so has died of cancer. Last Friday, for example, my own Sanji, as we call it, died of cancer. And during the speeches, they said, this man, when he was sick, he went to Mulago UCI, Uganda Cancer Institute, and coming back, he said, I don't want to go back to that place again. I had been to Uganda Cancer Institute at Mulago, and I said, my God, there is no way we can live like this, because when it is raining on the patients or their relatives. If it is sunshine, hot heat, they are out there in the open. And they are waiting for how many doctors? There are not very many.
Right.
So the pain that you feel, actually this person said, the gentleman whom we were praying for, the late Yarugawa, said, I don't want to come back to Mulago again, because it will make my situation worse. And I can assure you and I and our viewers, you just walk to Mulago, Uganda Cancer Institute, and you feel, my God, I don't want to come here again. So it drives you to do something. We must do something, because that's what we are made of, to be able to help society.
Right.
So I then decided, let's make a foundation in Sarah's name, and then we try to use it as a vehicle to help others.
What services do you offer in this foundation?
We are going to start, we've got a new concept in Uganda. Fortunately, it is not me who is originating it, because I understand that the Speaker of Parliament is actually a patron, has agreed to be a patron, but it is called Sanctuary and Information Centers. This Sanctuary Information Centers concept was developed in the UK some 5 years ago by a lady, Maggie by the name, and she died also of cancer. Her husband was an architect, and they had agreed pre-death, of course, that they wanted to set up sanctuary centers, which centers would now act as information exchange centers. And so they've developed this, and research now shows that up to 40% contributes to healing.
Right.
These are centers which are not treatment centers. They are centers that are attached to treatment centers. So in our case, with the Uganda Cancer Institute, you'd have a small room as big as these studios, and then you equip that room with computers, tablets, you've got brochures, and so before you go to see your doctor, you are able to sit in there and get that environment that cools you down. That environment in which you are able to exchange information with the other patients, and it helps you a lot to manage your stress. So we want to start building this. We are already in talk with the Kampala International University, since they are nearby Mulago, to see whether they can allocate to us a small room space. Mulago is a little bit complicated because of land issues, but that's the nearest place we would have wanted to build these centers. They are not very expensive because Uganda Cancer Society, with whom we are working, has already given us a budget of about 1 billion shillings. So it's not too much money. We can raise this money and we create centers and we move up country so that we are not always concentrated into Kampala.
Wow. Okay. And what has been the response? Because right now we're saying wow and we're nodding, but for those out there that you have been able to reach to, how have they been receptive to it? Are they willing to? The
response is fantastic. Everybody that we go to, first of all, like we are able to recognize on this table, is that we are all affected by cancer in one way or the other.
Right.
So anybody you go to says, oh my God, you are very welcome. I would like to find a way of supporting you. So yes, the support is widespread. It is a question of how many people are we able to reach, and how long is it going to take us to be able to mobilize that sympathy into concrete financial terms, and these financial terms being now translated into the physical structures that we are thinking of.
You know, you did mention that, just going back to your experience, you did mention that it was hard for you to find a support system, like a group that you would confide in, because you said the most important thing is to find a safe space to share and just let your heart out. What would you say to someone who is watching us today, especially the men who feel like, for me to open up, it's not African at all, I'm going to be perceived in this certain way? What did you tell them this morning? That's your camera, the small camera.
We really must understand that life and death is a fact, and how we manage it is very, very important for societal continuity. The other day I was chatting with someone, and when I said I would be in the studios to discuss about how cancer affected me, he said, I don't want to watch. I said, why? Because I'm still traumatized. And I said, no, you've got to overcome that trauma, because getting immersed into trauma is not going to help you at all. You must get out, because the person who has passed on, he can't expect you to die with her. Yeah, so we want to pass on this information. Yes, you get a shock, you get trauma, but you must overcome it.
Okay.
But without having the avenues to exchange this information, of course, then we draw into ourselves.
Do we say then men need to go to churches, maybe? Because if these support systems are not there.
Support systems are not there. The churches, as you know, when you go into church, it is just general preaching. There's no direct personal interaction between you and the priest. He doesn't have the time. It's a similar situation even when you go to Cancer Institute for treatment. The doctor doesn't have time. He's looking at so many other people.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
But we are going to have a music concert this Friday. We haven't talked about it. And this music concert on Friday is going to be a vehicle to start awareness.
Okay.
We are trying to do something a little bit different from the cancer run that you are used to. We are bringing in a Congolese band of repute that has been on the music scene for more than 30 years. And they will be supported by our own group, Ziwuna Band. And so we are going to use that. The Prime Minister is going to be our guest of honor, and we want to launch that as a vehicle for awareness, and we hope that we can pick up speed.
Where will it be?
It is going to be at Imperial Royal, and it starts at 6 o'clock on Friday.
It's
open to all?
Free entry.
No.
How much?
It's going to be 75,000 shillings ordinary ticket, and 150,000 shillings for VIPs. But we are all appealing to everybody that this is a contribution.
Right.
It is, you shouldn't look at it as a cost, but a contribution.
You did mention about what the foundation will be doing, and I think this is also one of the ways of, creating an avenue for people to open up their hearts and get to share with each other, just encouraging each other to walk the journey, and that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. We salute you this morning. It's not easy to go through that. To salute you, and we honor you this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bahana, and the fact that he was able to tell a friend, I believe, who said, but why are you going to talk about it and I can't watch it? But it's a space that maybe as you mourn someone that you have lost, a number of families, 157 people lost their lives this past weekend. So for those that mourn, it could be any reason that they could have lost their lives. It could have even been an accident. They could have been ill for a while. But whatever it is, you can always find a support group. You can always find someone to talk to. Do not bury yourself into work. Dr. John Bahana was able to find a way and a solution out of that. But we have people that can be able to talk to you in churches, your friends, your family. And if you know someone who's dealing with grief, be the person that they can speak to. Ask them how they are doing. It's very, very important, and it could help and save that person's life as well. We have been joined by Dr. John Bahana. My tongue seemed to have sleep. And he lost his wife, Sarah Bahana, a while ago, and he has found a purpose through his grief. Have you found yours? Morning at NTV continues.
Play and win every 10 minutes. For every 1,000 you spend, it gives you 1 entry into the jackpot this Sunday.
On MTN, simply dial *165*33#. That's *165*33#. Then enter your 3 lucky numbers. Then enter your 1,000.